Life, as I knew it, was a seamless blend of love, trust, and mutual respect. My wife, Emily, and I had been married for 7 years, and every day seemed to be a reaffirmation of our commitment to each other. We met in college, where she was the vibrant soul who lit up any room she entered, and I was the quiet, reserved type who found himself drawn to her magnetic personality. Over time, what started as an innocent friendship blossomed into something much deeper, a bond that felt unshakable. Emily was everything I could have ever asked for in a partner. She was kind-hearted, intelligent, and fiercely independent. Her laughter was infectious, her smile disarming, and her unwavering support made me feel like I could conquer the world. Together, we built a life filled with shared dreams and countless memories. Our home was always warm, filled with the aroma of her cooking or the sound of us laughing over silly jokes. We were the couple everyone envied, the ones who seemed to have it all figured out. Our marriage wasn't without its challenges, of course. There were days when work stress would weigh heavily on one of us, or moments when misunderstandings crept in. But through it all, we communicated openly, worked through disagreements, and emerged stronger because of it. Trust was the foundation of our relationship, and I never once doubted that Emily loved me just as much as I loved her. It was this sense of security that made her recent behavior so perplexing. A few months ago, Emily began volunteering at a local shelter, dedicating her evenings to what she described as charity work. At first, I admired her dedication. It fit perfectly with the person I knew her to be, someone who cared deeply about helping others. She spoke passionately about the organization, telling me stories of the people she met and the impact they were making. But as weeks turned into months, I couldn't help but notice subtle changes in her demeanor. She became more distant, often disappearing into her phone during dinner or excusing herself early from family gatherings. When I asked about her days, her answers were vague, and there were times when she seemed almost evasive. At first, I brushed these feelings aside, chalking them up to my own insecurities, or perhaps just being overly observant. After all, how could someone as devoted as Emily do anything to jeopardize what we had? Still, the nagging questions lingered. Why did she insist on working late nights when the shelter's official hours ended at 6? Why did she avoid discussing specifics about her activities? And why, whenever I offered to join her, did she quickly change the subject or suggest another time? The doubts gnawed at me, but I refused to let them consume me. Instead, I focused on the love we shared, reminding myself of the countless reasons I trusted her completely. Or so I thought. As the weeks went by, the cracks in Emily's story began to widen, though I tried hard to ignore them. One evening, while sorting through old photos on her laptop, I stumbled upon a message notification from an app one didn't recognize. Curiosity got the better of me, and before I could stop myself, I clicked on it. What appeared next sent a chill down my spine. An unfamiliar name popped up in her chat history, along with cryptic messages exchanged late at night. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Maybe it was just a fellow volunteer checking in on some project. But then I noticed something else. The frequency of these conversations. They weren't sporadic. They were consistent, almost daily. And worse still, the tone of the messages hinted at familiarity, even intimacy, that left me uneasy. I forced myself to step back, reminding myself not to jump to conclusions. Yet, the seed of doubt had already taken root. That night, I lay awake, replaying every conversation, every glance, every moment of hesitation between us. Was it possible that I'd missed something crucial? Could the woman I thought I knew be hiding parts of herself from me? Determined to get to the bottom of things, I decided to dig deeper. During one of her rare mornings off, I casually mentioned wanting to surprise her by joining her at the shelter later that week. To my surprise, she hesitated, claiming it might not be the best idea since the place was understaffed and chaotic. Her reluctance only fueled my suspicion further. Later that day, I decided to pay the shelter a visit under the guise of delivering supplies. As I approached the building, I noticed a man lingering near the entrance. He looked familiar, though I couldn't quite place him. Watching from afar, I saw him exchange a brief hug with Emily before disappearing inside. Something about their interaction struck me as oddly intimate, and I resolved to follow up on it. That night, I stayed up researching the shelter online, hoping to find clues about its operations and staff. What I discovered shocked me. The man I'd seen earlier bore a striking resemblance to someone whose profile picture came up in connection with the organization, a former board member named Alex Carter. Scrolling through social media, I learned that Alex had stepped down from his role several years ago due to personal reasons. More disturbingly, his last known address matched the neighborhood where Emily claimed to spend most of her volunteer hours. By now, the pieces were starting to fall into place, though I wished desperately they wouldn't. Despite my growing unease, I told myself to remain calm. Perhaps there was an innocent explanation for everything. Still, the weight of uncertainty hung heavy over me, threatening to shatter the illusion of perfection I'd held onto for so long. The following weekend, armed with newfound resolve, I decided to confront Emily directly. I chose a quiet afternoon, knowing she wouldn't expect me to bring up the topic. We sat together on the couch, sipping coffee, and I began carefully, choosing my words with precision. I started, trying to keep my voice steady. I've been thinking about your volunteer work lately. You've been putting in so many hours, and I want to understand more about what you're doing. She smiled warmly, leaning closer. Of course. It's been such a rewarding experience. Helping those in need reminds me of why I fell in love with this kind of work in the first place. Her response sounded genuine enough, but I pressed on. I've been meaning to ask, is there anyone specific you've connected with there? Like, maybe someone who inspires you? For a split second, her expression faltered. Then, recovering quickly, she shrugged. Oh, just the usual team. Everyone's so passionate, it's hard not to feel inspired. Her evasion confirmed my fears. Taking a deep breath, I pushed forward. What about Alex Carter? Is he involved with the shelter too? This time, her reaction was immediate and damning. Her eyes widened, and she froze mid-sip, spilling her coffee slightly. Where did you hear that name? She stammered. I saw him outside the shelter the other day, I admitted, watching her closely. And I did some digging. Care to explain? Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Finally, she sighed, setting her cup down. Okay, fine. Let me tell you the truth. What followed was a confession that shattered my world. Emily revealed that Alex wasn't just another volunteer. He was her ex-boyfriend, someone she dated briefly after high school. They had reconnected through mutual friends shortly before she started volunteering at the shelter. Initially, their meetings were innocent enough, centered around charity events and community projects. But over time, the lines blurred. Their shared history resurfaced, bringing with it unresolved feelings neither of them had fully confronted. It wasn't supposed to happen, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. We both care about the cause, and spending time together brought back memories we thought we'd buried. Before I knew it, we crossed boundaries we shouldn't have. Hearing her admit it was like being punched in the gut. All the signs I'd ignored, the excuses I'd made, the trust I'd placed in her, all of it crumbled in an instant. Yet, despite the betrayal, part of me wanted to believe her. Maybe she hadn't intended for things to go this far. Maybe she truly regretted it. But one question lingered above all others. Had their relationship progressed beyond mere nostalgia? And if so, how far had they gone? The days that followed were a blur of conflicting emotions. Anger warred with hurt. Disbelief clashed with lingering affection. I struggled to reconcile the woman I loved with the version of her who had kept such a monumental secret from me. Every word she spoke, every gesture she made, now carried the weight of doubt. Despite my turmoil, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to uncover. If Emily and Alex had rekindled something, I needed to see it with my own eyes. Not out of malice, but out of necessity, to confirm whether my suspicions were valid or if I was spiraling into paranoia. One evening, after feigning exhaustion and heading to bed early, I slipped out of the house under the pretense of running errands. Guided by the information I'd gathered, I made my way to the small cafe located near the shelter, a spot Emily had mentioned casually during one of our conversations. According to her, it was where she often grabbed quick meals during her shifts. When I arrived, the scene unfolding before me stopped me dead in my tracks. Through the window, I saw them, Emily and Alex, sitting side by side, their heads bent close together in animated conversation. Laughter bubbled between them, natural and effortless, as though no one else existed in the room. From the corner of the table, I caught sight of intertwined fingers, a gesture so intimate it left me reeling. Fighting the urge to storm in and confront them, I instead opted for caution. I needed proof, not just fleeting glimpses of questionable behavior, but concrete evidence of what exactly was happening between them. With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and snapped several photos, capturing their interactions in vivid detail. As I stood there, hidden in shadows, a mixture of emotions overwhelmed me. Betrayal burned hottest, fueling a fire within me that threatened to consume everything I held dear. But beneath the anger lay a quieter, more insidious pain, the realization that the person I trusted most had willingly chosen someone else over me. Yet, amidst the chaos swirling inside me, another thought emerged. If Emily and Alex were indeed involved, then perhaps confronting them head-on wasn't the answer. Maybe there was another way to handle this, a way that allowed me to reclaim control, to turn the tables and expose the truth on my terms. And so I devised a plan. Returning home that night, I feigned ignorance, ensuring Emily remained unaware of my discovery. Over the next few days, I played the doting husband, showering her with attention and affection. It wasn't easy, given the turmoil brewing beneath the surface, but I reminded myself of the ultimate goal, exposing the truth without tipping her off prematurely. On the fourth day, I approached her with what seemed like spontaneous suggestion. "Hey, Em," I said casually, lounging beside her on the couch, "why don't we make a weekend trip out of your volunteer work? I'll tag along, help out wherever I can, and maybe even lend a hand with whatever projects you and Alex are working on." Her reaction was instantaneous and telling. She stiffened noticeably, her smile faltering as she searched for an excuse. "Are you sure? It's usually pretty hectic around here, and—" "Come on," I interrupted smoothly, cutting her off before she could fabricate an elaborate lie. "I'm serious. I want to support you, and besides, it could be fun. Think of it as a bonding experience." Reluctantly, she agreed, though her discomfort was palpable. Little did she know, I had no intention of merely observing. This trip would serve as the perfect opportunity to gather the final pieces of evidence I needed. Saturday morning arrived, and true to my word, I accompanied Emily to the shelter. Armed with determination and a hidden camera strapped to my wrist, I immersed myself in the environment, pretending to assist with various tasks while keeping a keen eye on both her and Alex. Throughout the day, their interactions grew increasingly tense. While they maintained a professional facade in front of others, subtle cues betrayed their underlying tension. Stolen glances, hurried whispers, and deliberate avoidance of certain topics painted a clearer picture of their strained dynamic. By the end of the afternoon, it became evident that my presence had disrupted their carefully constructed routine. As dusk settled over the city, Emily suggested we call it a day, citing fatigue. However, I insisted on staying behind to clean up, offering to handle the remaining chores solo. Relieved, she bid me farewell, leaving me alone with Alex. It was during this solitary encounter that the truth finally unraveled. Cornering him in the storage room, I revealed everything I knew: the photos, the messages, the undeniable evidence of their affair. His initial denial quickly gave way to resignation as I presented each piece of proof, forcing him to acknowledge the depth of their betrayal. In that moment, I felt a strange sense of vindication, yet it came at a cost. The weight of their deception pressed heavily on my shoulders, threatening to crush the remnants of hope I clung to. Still, I resolved to carry on, determined to navigate the turbulent waters ahead and rebuild my life, or perhaps redefine it altogether. Walking away from the confrontation, I found myself standing at a crossroads. The marriage I once cherished teetered precariously on the brink of collapse, its foundation eroded by secrets and lies. Yet, amidst the wreckage, a flicker of clarity emerged. For the first time, I realized that healing wasn't solely about forgiveness or revenge. It was about self-discovery, about learning to stand tall even when the ground beneath you shifts unexpectedly. Over the subsequent weeks, I engaged in open dialogue with Emily, demanding transparency and accountability. Though painful, these conversations proved cathartic, allowing us to confront the truths we'd long avoided. Whether our relationship could survive the ordeal remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. Moving forward required courage, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to rebuilding trust, if either of us desired it. And so, with each passing day, I took small steps toward reclaiming my sense of self, embracing the complexities of love and loyalty while preparing for whatever future awaited.